Gladys Forshey, 404 South 3rd Avenue. In the April issue of the town newsletter, town manager noted changes in expenditures, eliminating community-wide street sweeping. Last week, I sent an email to the mayor, to the town manager, and to the public works manager about the street sweeping. Now, this was discussed last year, that this method was not going to be used again because of lots of issues. And it was very clearly stated at the town board meetings that this wasn't going to happen again. And what happened last week? It's a public health hazard, violating the Clean Air Act, plus on and on and on, by the present by the present contractor. Now, why? Why was this allowed to be done? The Public Works Manager is not following, supposedly, what was cut and dried at the town meeting last year.
Okay.
Why is it allowed?
Well, it's part of our regional air quality commitment to pick up debris after it snows, so that's
It was
that's a
very clearly
requirement.
discussed last year that he was a hazard by not using water in his street sweeper.
Okay.
Now,
Point
why,
taken.
if it was very clearly cut last year, why is it allowed this year?
Okay.
Is it going to be allowed again?
We will do what's needed. What's next on your
And what is that going to be?
What's next on your?
No, I'm not through discussing this, Mr. Mayor. I want some answers.
Okay.
Because this is a health hazard.
Okay.
And so what is going to be done to curtail the street sweeping the way that it's been done?
So Gladys, I recall what you were talking about, and I think I haven't had a chance to, because this is the first I've heard of your complaint, and so I haven't had a chance, and I don't think anyone else has right now, to talk to our Public Works Director about that, so it's going to have to be something that we get a chance to talk with him. I know what meeting you're referring to about using water instead of that, so we'll have to look into it.
And the town manager or the public works director. Let me just ask you a question. Was water used during street sweeping?
Yes.
Okay.
Not last week.
Okay.
Here are pictures of the street sweeping. You can see the water trail behind the sweeping, nor will you see any evidence of dust. I happened to see one the week before, after the prior snow. Would I have wanted to have been walking behind the street sweeper? Probably not. But at the same time, you'll see that we weren't experiencing the kinds of problems that the town was experiencing a year ago, at least not in this particular instance.
There was not any water on 3rd Avenue last week when the street was swept.
Okay.
We got your message. Thank you.
Well, and I understand you have my message, Scott. I did not have the courtesy of an email from either one of the three of you. So now I'm here. I'm wanting to know, and I understand what you're saying, Dana, you haven't known because of the fact there were the three principals that can control this issue instantaneously. And so now I want to know what is going to be done about enforcing it so that there is enough water coming out of that street sweeper to curtail the dust.
Okay.
Not okay. What is going to be done, Mr. Mayor?
This is within the public works department. They don't,
Fine, our public
don't
works
need-
manager is here. Let's ask him.
Okay. What else is on your list?
No, can we ask the public works manager what's going to be done about it?
If he has comments that he wants to make and the town manager thinks that it would be fruitful.
Again, in response to the inquiry we received last week, we had the Public Works Department go out and check to make sure that proper procedures were being used. You'll see the evidence, the pictures that were taken within minutes of having received the initial complaint. We didn't see any validity in it. There's evidence of water. There's no dust. And granted, it's a black and white photograph. But
I'm sorry, there was dust on 3rd Avenue, and there was no water on 3rd Avenue coming out of that street sweeper. None.
Well, hopefully this isn't something that's going to happen again, but maybe if you
I
take a
hope not.
maybe if
but
you take a picture,
How
I'm
often
sure
are we
we'll-
going to be sweeping the streets? Because this is a published newsletter saying that street sweeping was
clarification,
eliminated.
That's a different.
No.
That's a different issue, though.
street sweep. Last year, the town initiated 2 2 town-wide street sweepings. We'd never done that before. 2 of them, one in the spring, one in the fall. We've always, and have continued, to sweep after every storm at which salt, sand, and ice slicer has been placed on our streets. That's continuing. The reference to the elimination of the town-wide street sweeping, separate and distinct from what our practices are for snow removal and cleanup after snow removal operations.
What does the contractor say about water in the equipment sweeping the streets?
I don't have the
Nobody
contract in
has
front
the
of me, so I
contract
don't
in front of
understand.
us.
I don't know. I wouldn't be able
Why
to
can't
respond to it.
why can't the public works manager come up?
Okay.
Now, this is a health hazard, and I will be more than happy to file a complaint with EPA, because there is absolutely no reason for this whatsoever.
That would be your prerogative.
And you bet I will use it.
Okay. What else is on your?
I'm asking
list?
why the public works manager can't come up and address the issue.
If the Public Works Director has some more information to help out, that would be great.
John Hawkes, Director of Public Works. When we received the email, I immediately went out. I found the street sweepers. I took a picture. Every time we've investigated this, there has been water on the street. There's been water in the street sweeper. They've been using it. And so there's nothing more I can do. I chased it down. We took pictures. We have no evidence that anything was out of the ordinary, that the contractor was not following his proper procedures.
Okay. Thank you.
So there's a clear understanding between us and the contractor as to what's necessary is.
Absolutely. And for a little bit of clarification, they're not washing the streets. It's enough water to lubricate and to take the dust down. It's not
Well,
washing the streets.
It was clearly a problem last year.
Yes.
I didn't see this happen this year, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But
So we haven't been able to find any evidence to the contrary.
Thank you.
All right.
That's very wrong. Very wrong. Well, I haven't seen the house on the corner of Coal Creek Drive and Second Avenue moved either. What's the situation with that scenario?
We've had a personal conversation about that, so nothing has changed since that time.
At the last town board meeting, it was a very public comment that there was going to be something done. There hasn't been.
There wasn't any suggestion that the house was going to be moved.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor? The town manager sat right there and
That
said,
we're working, we have no, and once again, the attorney or the town manager can correct me, but the town has no legal authority to require them to move it.
the town manager sat right there and said that the
That
property
we're
owner...
working on it.
May I finish what I was going to say?
Sure.
The town manager sat right there and said the property owner, that where the house is sitting presently, was wanting to get something done. What I am inquiring about is, how is that process moving along?
We've heard nothing else from the property owner on which the house currently sits, nor have we had any additional conversations with the owner of the structure that is sitting on his neighbor's property. That issue is between those two owners. As the mayor indicated, we have no regulations regulating or guiding the installation and moving of buildings. I think what was said at the last meeting was the new Chapter 16, which is currently under review by the Planning Commission, and I expect will be presented to the board within the next 2 to 3 months, will have regulations on how buildings moving of structures within the community are dealt with. Again, that'll be part of Chapter 16. At that point, I would expect that we'll have standards regarding the moving of buildings. But when that structure was moved to town many, many months ago, there were no standards. There are no such standards today. What we talked about 2 weeks ago was an issue between the owner of the building and the owner of the property on which it sits.
Now, why was that so hard to get out of him?
It's the same
That's the
information.
problem with
It's the-
this town, is there is no communication.
That's the
the
same
same
I won't even
information.
waste
It's the
my
same
time.
information that was communicated 2 weeks ago.
That's fine. It doesn't matter if it's the same information. At least there's communication.
Okay. Anything else?
There is, but I won't waste my breath on it.
Okay. Additional public comment? Seeing none, then we'll move on to item number 5, which is presentations. And sorry for a little interruption in your presentation, and why don't we resume where we were at? Sure.
I'm Christy Audette, and I'm coming back up to finish up our presentation.
And it was recommended, actually, Juanita, if you wouldn't mind, Director Dominguez, for people that are tuning in at this particular time, a 1 or 2 minute synopsis of where we're at.
Synopsis of where we're at. We had a committee, an event committee, looking into putting together a historic bicycle race, Superior Lifestyle Weekend. We're bringing a presentation to the board this evening to ask for further direction to continue the investigation of this Superior Lifestyle Weekend using the historic Morgul-Bismarck bike race as our signature event. Right now, we are going to let Christy Audette come in and talk about some examples of other regional events within the community to make some comparisons to what event we are proposing for you tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So our examples of some of the other regional type events, regional draw events that are in the area, just to kind of paint a picture of what we're looking at. The Boulder Creek Festival, which does carry an entertainment component and a food component, does not carry a sport component or not really an art component. The Cherry Creek Arts Festival obviously is very heavy on the art component and some food and a little bit of entertainment, but again doesn't encompass the sport component that we're looking at. Taste of Colorado, very heavy on the food. Entertainment is certainly a focus there. No sport and no art. There is an event called the Tulsa Tough that takes place in Oklahoma every year that we are actually hoping to sort of model our weekend after. They come as close as anything we've been able to find, and obviously it's in Oklahoma, so it's not in this region. But we are hoping to look for kind of a good mentor-type relationship with them and actually be able to do a case study of that weekend. There is also an Iron Horse Bicycle Classic that takes place in Durango, but again, it's very focused on the bicycle element and doesn't weave in all these other things that we're talking about. So these are all reasons why we feel that this event is very unique and will be very intriguing to people in this area. The next slide is just our wrap-up of the fact that the way we'd like to roll out this event ideally is that in 2009, we've already worked to enhance the Superior Days celebration by adding a garden show component, which was one of the items that was originally mentioned in the directive. And then the other way we'd like to do this is as we obtain directive from the board, we would like to start to do teasers and weave some of the information and some of the sort of focus of this wellness weekend and this lifestyle weekend into the 4th of July celebration and the Chili Fest this year, so that we're sort of building the excitement throughout the year to a target date of May 2010, which again coincides with the 25th anniversary of the movie release of American Flyers. So we feel it would be a very exciting package and would get people really looking forward to the event throughout this year. So I'll go back to Juanita for the next piece.
Juanita Dominguez, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. Before I continue, we have a little clip that we'd like you to watch. This is a clip from the actual movie, American Flyer. And you can see some of the beautiful scenery, which is superior.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're 7 minutes to start of the famous Morgul-Bismarck stage of the Hell of the West, and we're getting the race caravan organized and ready to begin. Here come some of the
Just so happens this movie was the
More
first
vehicles
movie
coming
starring
through. Team
Kevin
cars.
Costner.
Let's keep the roadway clear. Mexico, Great Britain, Italy, Norway, team cars coming through. Press people, please report to your vehicle.
This next clip will show
Riders
McCaslin
ready.
Boulevard going up to
Timers
121.
ready. We're underway. The Hell of the West, stage number 1. Let's hear it for a big send-off. The Hell of the West, stage number 1. We're underway. This first circuit of the Hell of the West is the dreaded Morgul-Bismarck. It's a world championship course which offers little shade, steep hills, fast descents, and the gut-wrenching climb to the finish line that
As you
sits
can
here
see, it
atop
runs
the
through
devastating
Marshall,
wall.
up through Superior,
Riders who have raced here before
through the hump.
seldom look forward to coming back, and newcomers to a race of this stature, unused to riding in a large pack, We'll soon find out why. This is a race that
Thank you for taking the time to look at that. It's superior. It's history. It is a 3-day Superior event. The group would like to ask the Board of Trustees for direction to move forward, to look at a detailed business plan so that we can come back to the board in late June, around budget time, to talk about revenues, expenses, budget, potential targets for goals and sponsorships, partnerships. We'll talk about venues and, of course, a traffic plan. At this time, the next step would be to retain that race director to assist with putting this together. And again, we've had a lot of contact with individuals within the industry. We think that we can get somebody on board quite quickly to assist with the business plan, bring it back to the board, and ask if we can try to roll this out by a target date of May 2010.
Okay. Anything else from you? Anything else from the presentation? Sorry.
No, there's nothing else for the presentation other than that we...
Great. Questions from the board? So, Trustee Skumats.
I like the tie-in with a historic race and outdoors activities. I think that's great. I think one of the components that I didn't hear mentioned a lot and has some personal connection, I think it would be great to do is have a little bit more tie-in with a youth event. I saw the family race, but there didn't really seem to be anything that really called to the youth. And maybe you don't want youth, maybe maybe you have a concern, but I really didn't see a big draw for the youth. So that's one comment I would make. I'm not looking for
An answer?
You can if you want, but I'm just making
Sure,
some
sure. And
comments.
as a matter of fact, we looked at that. We talked about using Cal 9 as a mini course, going around.
that's a good idea.
And so
Big wheels, like you mean, or? I don't know.
Well, you know, still, we're in the conceptual
Okay.
stages, so, I mean, we can incorporate that easily.
So anyway, some kind of event with the youth would be great to have it.
Dunkin'
The other thing-
Booth with mayor.
Pardon?
Yeah, something
Dunkin'
like
Booth
that.
with the mayor.
Sure.
Something like
Yeah.
that.
Those
High
type
throwing
things, yeah.
contest.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also just to interrupt you, when we have the youth triathlon, maybe changing the time of that might make sense to tie in there.
That's a great idea.
I thought it was around that same time.
And then another comment that I think is I would be nervous if your charge was to go away and scope this event. Being a more conservative person, I'd like to see something where it's a phased event as well. Maybe the first year it's not 3 days. Maybe the first year it's a little bit less or something like that, and it phases up over some period of time. I'd like to see an alternative like that. I don't like a one choice option. I like to have a second choice and see what that might be for dollars and so on. So those are two issues I have. Thank you. Oh, and I have some contacts with the Tulsa folks if you.
Oh, great.
Other questions from the board? Trustee
Yeah,
D'Souza? Or
go ahead.
Trustee Cirilli?
I was thinking along the same lines, particularly, though this might be the most difficult part of all of it, is to try to kick off regenerate the Morgul Bismarck by itself, to get it back on the cycling community's radar screen, and then go from there. But that may be the biggest part of all of this organization anyway, so I'm not sure if that helps. But I just think of attempts in the running side of the world where some races catch on and some don't. This one has a history, so if it does catch on. I mean, Denver's been trying to have a marathon, and maybe they've been luckier the last couple of years, but they've been trying and failing over the last 20 years more than succeeding. Boulder's had the Boulder, and that was great and took off. The Boulder Backroads took off, but other races don't. So, it's hard to tell but this one, certainly with the history, if we got out in the cycling community, and without doing the whole 3-day weekend right off the bat, but getting the race back on everybody's radar screen might be a way of having this grow into a 3-day weekend. That's just my thought, but that's just something you can kick around. You might find that takes 2/3 of the preparation and work anyway. But
Trustee D'Souza.
And then I saw mentioned somewhere about the Dirty Bismarck as well. Is that, would that be part of the three-day plan at all,
Right, to tie in.
to tie that in?
Right.
I was just thinking also with the opening of the, our trailhead, I'm not sure what, if that could be some way used as well to sort of tie it in.
Sure, some of the tie-ins that we've been looking at, the Dirty Bismarck, basically what that is a race that is already in existence here in town, Koppenberg, which happens on the west end of town. It's mostly a dirt track. However, the vision was to have several different types of races with the same group of individuals, and of course, at the end, using the Morgul Bismarck. Just to address a couple of comments about rolling it all out at once. The committee has talked at length about how that may or may not work, and really looking at smaller snippets, and then of course getting to the big 3-day event. Even the events that we have now took us 7-8 years to establish as great regional events with our Chili Fest and some of those things. We know that it takes a long time to really center these events and get the momentum going. There is momentum in the cycling community right now, talking about the fact that we'd like to try and regenerate this historic Morgul Bismarck, but understand that it will be. It will take a long time for it to really stick, and to do it right, we need to make sure that we stage it correctly. And so if we find out through the business plan that, yes, the first year this is what we're going to do, the second year we'll roll out this, and then continue that route, that's what we'll do.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to have options of that. Although I do know, especially if this is something that's going to attract people from out of town, it is nice to come there and make an event out of it, especially if you're bringing family or anything else like that, that it's nice to have other things to do besides the actual event. So it'd be nice to maybe have, like you said, doing it in phases, but I wouldn't want to cut it out too much that we don't have other events to draw the people as well.
Well, I think this is incredibly exciting information, and I was just thrilled when I was reading the packet here. And being someone who watched the Morgul Bismarck when I was a kid on the wall, it was pretty fun to see this coming back again. So I think I agree with everybody that it would be great to see this probably in stages. A lot of this uses state highways. I'm not sure how open they are to planning events on those. So it'll be interesting to see how that your traffic plan works. And that was a professional race, and I think that there were prizes associated with that, which I don't think that the town could fund unless they were very small. Do you have ideas in your business plan, thoughts about where we could get sponsorship?
The sponsorship's going to really assist with some of the prizes. I do think that within the proposal there was information about having the town support, at least in the beginning, some of the prizes and those types of things. And then as we grow through sponsorships, then that's how we pay those prizes.
Yeah, it'd be great, when the town center, this would be a perfect tie-in when the town center occurs, and actually this maybe would drive some of the town center development, but, it's sort of chicken-egg type of issue here. But, you could see having stages over there where there'd be entertainment, there'd be community meeting space over there, not in terms of a building, but in terms of a park and entertainment areas, and then having the races run out of there. I think it's, I think it'd be fantastic opportunities there, but it might be a few years, perhaps a little early for that. But I think that there's great opportunity here. So, Trustee Skumatz.
And the issue of venues is a big issue, I think. And you mentioned something about shuttles running between the different venues, and I think that always really hurts the event. So if there's any, I think we need to plan it so that it uses venues we've got and then venues that we gain. It worries me to have people shuttling from place to place. I think it's a recipe for failure. So that worries me.
And then you should have all the actors from American Flyers come in and they could start the race.
Kevin's on his way in.
Kevin's on his way in. Give his agent a call.
Ask Madonna what she thinks.
You know people.
Know people who know people.
Thanks for all your hard work. I mean,
Yeah.
once again, I think this is really exciting and
Good group.
look forward to having more information about it.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
It'll be really fun.
Let's see, that brings us on to item number 6, the consent agenda, and remaining on the consent agenda are approval of the minutes for April 13th, 2009, acceptance of the minutes for the Open Space Advisory Committee, Parks, Recreation, Open Space, Trails Advisory Committee, and Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee meetings. D, preliminary approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 18 to the Superior Municipal Code regarding building standards. 6E, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Green Earth Fence Products, Inc. for fence staining and repair. And F, adoption of a resolution amending the Historical Commission bylaws. With that, I'll entertain a motion by Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee D'Souza. Further discussion regarding this issue. Phyllis?
I think there's a abstaining.
Sorelli?
Yay.
D'Souza?
Yes.
Muckle?
Yes?
Skumatz?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That carries. And then with that, we were to the preliminary approval of the ordinance for amending Chapter 17 to the Superior Municipal Code regarding health, sanitation, and animals. Trustee Skumatz.
Yes, and I thought because it generated a great deal of discussion last time, I thought it might be nice for you just to run through some of the highlights for the people in the audience.
As the result of both board suggestion and numerous recommendations or requests that came from the audience, 3 significant additions. First, as a result of some additional investigation, we came up with a recommendation regarding standards for the storage of inoperable vehicles. The original draft that you saw 2 weeks ago required that inoperable vehicles be stored within an enclosed structure. That's the way the ordinance reads currently. At the request of the board, it has been broadened, modified to include as long as it is sufficiently screened from public view, and by public view, from the public right-of-way and from adjoining properties. We didn't go into standards, but it was solid fence, solid landscaping, something so that somebody doesn't have to look at your inoperable vehicle. The other one had to do with animals. There was a request and a suggestion that we allow the keeping of chickens, not for slaughter, but for their other productive facilities. And we've added a section which would allow chickens. We've left a blank in terms of the number. Our suggestion was 3. We've looked at a number of other standards. There were varying sizes based on the size of the yard and the like. We think for simplicity's sake, we're recommending pick a number, and that is it. We've also added a provision that would allow the keeping of a goat on your property in a residential zoning district. And we investigated but found, at the request of a suggestion regarding the ability to regulate pit bulls, but as a statutory non-home rule municipality, we are precluded from regulating pit bulls. So the 3 new sections are inoperable vehicles broadened, a provision for chickens, and a provision for a goat. Other than that, it remains, all of the other sections are consistent with what you saw 2 weeks ago.
So we need to pick, we need to pick something by final reading?
Correct.
Okay. And can you just name a couple of the cities that allow fewer than 3 versus more than 3, or about 3? Can you give me some idea of who
I know
falls where?
we did a quick and dirty, and I want to say it was either Portland or Seattle that had a flexible schedule. I believe most of our neighboring communities, and I believe the prevailing number was 3. I don't want to say Boulder and Longmont. Boulder, I don't believe Louisville even allows it. It might have been Longmont. It might have been Erie.
Any more than 3?
Again, the only ones that I saw language on, and some of those were referred to me by some of the people that were requesting this in the first place, West Coast municipalities, and they were allowed based on the size of the yard.
But 3 is kind of the prevailing norm.
That's what I was able to find,
Okay.
or we were able to find.
Okay. And how about information about goats? That's one that I don't have any familiarity with. Is that, anybody allow that? Are there issues related to them? Or?
A number that allow it. And again, we were picking a number, and if the purpose is a source of milk.
I thought for a lawnmower.
That's what I thought.
Either would work, I'm sure.
Okay. Trustee D'Souza, did you have others?
Just on the goat issue, I know a lot of people had spoke about in Boulder that you used to be able to rent them out for areas. And I don't know if they still have that program or not, but apparently it was pretty successful. I just wanted to make a note to any public that might be watching as far as the chickens, that is not roosters, and that there are regulations as far as keeping them enclosed so they aren't just, let loose running around the neighborhood. And that for any of the codes as well, people can always look online under our codes, and they can find that. So if people have questions on these and are interested in the details.
Another comment that was raised 2 weeks ago that we have not made any edits. They're not edited from the original code. These are standards that are currently in place today. The proposal that was before you 2 weeks ago, and it has not been edited at all, and that is the limitation on the cumulative number of pets. The current code, and its proposed, would remain the same: 3 dogs, 3 cats, 6 rabbits, 3 pot-bellied pigs, 3 ferrets, and 3 reptiles that don't qualify as exotic animals. When you get beyond that, you become defined as either a commercial operation or a kennel.
You can have all of them?
You can have all of them.
Oh, boy.
Slippery slope, didn't want to go there. We've lived with it for many, many years.
And then I think that we touched upon this last meeting, and I forget where we're at, but on item number 17 on page 7, it had to do with landscaping. It had to do with the quote-unquote approved landscaping plan. Once again, this is not an edit, it's just in our code as it exists. But what does that, we don't really have landscaping plans except for new developments. Is that?
Page 17, I'm missing.
Of the page 7, number 17, it's at the top.
It's what constitutes a nuisance. One of them is failure to maintain landscaping condition or in the approved landscaping plan.
So I'm not sure what that's really referencing.
Oh, no, page 7.
Oh, page 7.
Page 7, number 17.
Gotcha.
We approve landscape plans in,
We approve landscape plans for new developments.
Right.
Is that what this is
Yes.
referencing? Okay. Because we don't require anybody else to have an approved landscaping
No, it would be
plan.
within a new development or even a commercial development or
Okay.
any type of landscaping plan like that.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions regarding? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve an initial reading by Trustee Sumas, second by Trustee Sorelli. Further discussion, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, but did you
Thanks.
fill in the blank for the chickens?
We left it blank for the final reading.
Okay.
Unless you want to,
I'd
might you?
be happy to tentatively put in 3.
Sure.
3 is cool. Okay.
I'll leave it at the attorney's discretion about what to fill in for the first one, and I think I heard 3 was a number that we were interested in.
And thanks to the citizens for last time for the comments.
Yeah.
It was good give and take.
That was. Let's see, with that, we're item number 7, reports, questions, and issues. Trustee Sorelli, do you want to start?
yes, I don't have any reports. I did have something I'd like to bring up on the issues. We had, I think we all know, we received a series of emails, the Planning Commission reviewing Chapter 16 of the Land Use Code rewrite and asking for attorney assistance. They typically had attorney assistance at their meetings, which has been recently cut back as part of our cost-cutting steps. I would say that for the land use code itself, at least to get it started and see how it goes, I would recommend that we do let them have Jeff attend the meeting and see how that goes, because I think he would be very helpful in getting that land use code review done meaningfully. I didn't attend the meeting in question where the first time, so I don't really know if there were big problems or not. I do know from historically, Jeff has been extremely helpful in getting the Planning Commission through difficult tasks, and certainly a rewrite of Chapter 16, which I haven't seen, so maybe it's not all that difficult, but might be difficult, and I'd at least recommend getting him started with the attorney present. That was my thinking on that.
Trustee Skumatz?
And perhaps, I know the town manager had some response on that issue, and I wondered if you could summarize that?
Sure. When Chapter 16 was introduced to the Planning Commission at the first workshop session at which it was discussed, Jeff made a detailed presentation on those matters, legal matters. A summary of all the committee's suggestions that pertain to a legal matter. This is an area that, while it's been in your code, we don't have the ability to enforce that again because we're statutory and not home rule, or whatever it might have been. Here are changes in case law, which we're recommending this change for this particular reason. It's our opinion that the other items that are up for discussion are policy issues, not legal issues. And for that, the rest of the committee, or many that were on that internal staff committee that came up with the recommendations for Chapter 16, are in the room. Matt led the study. Phyllis was a participant in that study. Fred Fox, our planner, was a part of that committee. So our feeling was that group is more than sufficient to provide the kind of guidance, what's the rationale, what's the basis for the change, to respond to that kind of thing. If there's something that does come up that does have a legal bent, or even we just want to hear what Jeff's opinion is because he was also on that committee. But I would say that the only other person that we're paying to be in the room is Fred. Phyllis doesn't get compensated to be at the Planning Commission. Matt doesn't get compensated extra to be at the Planning Commission. So that was the motivation. We dealt with the legal issues on the initial presentation. We certainly have the stable available if and when any of those issues come up, but the thought was most of what the Planning Commission will be reviewing as they continue their page-by-page review of the proposed draft are not matters of legal concern. They're matters of policy concern.
Okay. So I just wanted that as background as well. So I don't know if the Planning Commission had trouble with any of the legal issues, and for those issues, that was what they wanted the attorney there for, or if they wanted it because he's a really good facilitator as well and can bounce off ideas about policy and what other communities do as well. So I don't know the basis for their request. I read their email.
I only know what you saw too.
Yeah.
I do know that the role that Jeff has assumed in the Planning Commission over the years that he's been there, and even our prior, has been more than just legal advisor. It's a less structured meeting, so it has a little free flow to it, and so he's always been extremely helpful. I'm not suggesting that he continue in all the meetings just because of that role, but with the Chapter 16 review, at least getting that going, I thought it would be helpful, particularly since they're asking. And since they're asking, I perceive there's a need, that they at least perceived to get some help on this. So I don't know.
And could it be? I'm wondering if it's something where we could sort of compromise and say, okay, for one meeting he comes and addresses a whole bunch of the issues, but then and that sort of thing, and then see if it's needed after that or something like that.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Because I'd love.
I didn't know that they had the initial meeting that you explained, Scott, and maybe there was less attendance at that or something. I don't know anything about that, unfortunately.
I think it's the fact that there's change.
Okay. So, and I know Matt is good and Fred's extremely good, in helping go through this, but I also know the really excellent role Jeff plays in pulling tough things together, especially when there's some rambling going on and you want to tie it up at the end. Jeff is good at that. But that being said, I was thinking in terms of what Lisa was suggesting of 1 or 2 meetings, getting them rolling, and then probably wouldn't be a need if they had that going.
And if they structured it so that the legal things were done first, and then...
And it was clear to them all that the rest were policy.
I think part of the issue, if I could just interject, part of the issue is that they're going through page by page, which is completely understandable.
Yeah.
And so my suggestion was, we went to the first one, made a presentation, why don't we go to the fourth one? Or, once they get through the initial page by page, and if we keep track of our legal questions, then we'll be able to answer them all. But it's difficult when they're going through page by page to anticipate that this Tuesday there will be 5 legal questions, but next Tuesday there won't be any.
Yeah.
So that was the suggestion that we made was we went to the first one, made a presentation, gave the overview on the bigger legal issues. Have them go through the page by page, which is, I know, a monotonous task sometimes, but.
Oh, no, it's enjoyable.
And
We all look forward to it.
Yeah, I'm sure. And have them go through that and then save all those legal questions until the end. Then there'll be a list of 10 or however many there are. It may be more efficient use of our time. But just to make it clear, to the extent the Planning Commission needs us for, at every meeting, we'll be there. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with regard to the cost. That's all.
And we're only talking about a few hours. I mean, we're not talking about 25 hours of.
Well, 5 meetings are scheduled, and I believe it's upwards of 3 hours a meeting. So it is a significant.
If it was for every meeting.
Yes,
at all
right.
the time.
You're
But
right.
your suggestion is for maybe one meeting, which so 3 to 5 hours is sort of what I was thinking.
Yes.
Does that sound like a reasonable
Yes.
number?
That does.
So, further board questions, comments, public comments?
Yes. Oddly enough, there's a planning commission.
Oddly enough.
This is helpful.
I'm Bob McCool, 312 West Coal Creek Drive, a member of the Planning Commission. I think there are a couple issues. As I understand it, Chapter 16 has been entirely rewritten, and Jeff has been primarily responsible for that. So I don't know that it's all about. This is what I'm gathering, and there are significant changes. Like things just aren't where they used to be, and when we were asking questions, Jeff was able to. He wrote it. I rewrote it. So I didn't get the impression it was about legal issues, but just being able to understand what we have now, or what we had, and how it's been written now, because it's been so significantly changed. And you got to remember, you have at least 1, 2, 4 of us who are fairly new, and so there's not a tremendous amount of experience on the Planning Commission. So if staff feels comfortable that, there were a lot of questions that Jeff just had to answer at the first meeting. I did miss the last one, so I don't know how that one went. But I think it's a little bit more than just legal questions.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but more help we can get, that probably the faster and better it'll go.
So, Mr. Magley, do you have anything that you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, just quickly, Matt Magley, town staff. We are also, based on the last meeting, going through and putting together a document that tries to go chapter by chapter to display or show the changes or explain the changes that were made.
A comparison table, sort of?
Yeah. And so hopefully with that, we'll be able to answer a lot of the questions even before the meeting starts. And so we can see how the next meeting goes. And if you wanted to have Jeff at the next meeting, I don't have a problem with that. And that, in addition to this document that we're producing for the Planning Commission, I think will go a long ways.
And when you say we, do you mean staff is preparing that, or you and
Yeah, myself, Fred Fox,
Okay.
and Phyllis is providing input.
Okay.
She hasn't seen it yet, but she will.
Getting ready to provide input.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, without getting specific direction, what I'd recommend is that, at staff's discretion, we don't want to be penny wise, pound foolish. If you need the time, they should use the time. If you don't need if there's not need at a particular meeting, don't have them come to that meeting. I don't know how we can direct that. I just say, do what makes sense. And once again, we want to get a good product out of this. So I don't know if that's a fair way to address this, but.
And we don't want to make it harder than it needs to be on Planning Commission.
Right. So.
It's hard enough.
Chapter
So it sounds like you have see how the next meeting goes and go from there and give us an update. If that's not working, then we'll go to Plan B.
I understand. It's a total rewrite in an effort to make it simpler. Unfortunately, the process gets more complicated.
Right.
The end product should be simpler.
Should be better, yeah. Okay. Thanks. Anything else from Trustee Skumatz?
Okay, let's see. I had the great pleasure of attending a historic committee event, which was a presentation with a person acting as a historic figure. And it was well attended. It was a Chautauqua scholar who did the event, and I think 30-some people attended, 35, I don't remember. Anyway, and it was fascinating. About a person from the state's history, and I look forward to the next event, and I hope it's even better attended, and I promise to bring some cookies next time. So, okay. I also had the chance, not as part of town necessarily, but kind of related to the recycling committee, to take a tour of the first LEED Platinum house in the U.S., which happens to be in Boulder, in the historic district of Boulder. It was really interesting, and they had super insulation in the walls, the ceiling, and LED lights and things like that, but nothing that you couldn't get off a shelf. But I thought the most telling comment was that during the coldest day last year, they were able to heat the house with the equivalent power of 2 hairdryers. So maybe that's town hall's goal, huh? But anyway, some really
hairdryers.
Yeah, right.
They have a volcano in their backyard. It's geothermal.
Yeah. Anyway, it was really interesting, and the person who built the house and gave the tour was really great, and I took away a lot of things that I think would be great. And I did want to mention also that for those who don't know, the latest the first round of funding for 1A the climate-wise homes and businesses happened, and I was sad to see that with more than 1-point-something% of the population, Superior only requested 1-point-something% of the money. So I don't know if the heart of that is because our workshop was a little bit late, or if we didn't, or what, but that's a program by which residents can borrow money from bonds from the county, essentially, and then the payments go with the house. It gets billed sort of on your property tax, so that if something doesn't have a 3-year payback and you plan to move in 3 years, you wouldn't do it. So this sort of provides a mechanism for people to put in things that make sense in the house, make sense year by year by year, but the payback doesn't happen for a while. So it's a great plan. You can afford to put in solar, you can afford to put in windows, things like that with longer paybacks, and yet the payments stay with the house. It's the largest one in the country, largest idea like this in the country. I think we also got it got going faster than places that sort of got initial approval earlier. So kudos to Boulder County and Ann Livingston in particular for really moving on that. But I was sad to see although the room was bursting here for the workshop that you had to attend, a lot of the Superior people didn't quite follow through, but I suspect there will be a second round of funding, and I hope that citizens will look for that. It can really pay off in your short-term electric bills. So do consider that.
The question on that. So it's not just solar energy; it's all types of energy efficiency.
You have to do energy efficiency first.
Okay.
Then you can do other.
And I think maybe part of the problem also is that there's either an income or house price cutoff that limits some of the residents in Superior.
Well, there's income it's just a difference in the interest rate that you pay. So there's income qualified route that pays a little bit lower their interest than people who aren't income qualified. Mm-hmm. So it's only that you pay a little bit higher interest rate on that money. So it's really, there's no limit on it. I mean, that would affect us.
Okay.
So anyway, I highly encourage it. It's not only creative, it's also pays back. So I think it's a really good thing, and I will try to be more proactive about making sure something gets in the newsletter prominently or something when the next round, which I anticipate happens. I think the total was $9.4 million or something like that got funded. So a lot of energy efficiency and conservation and new and substitute, I guess, alternative power that's going to happen right away. Talk about shovel ready. So we had another coffee buzz. It was attended even though it was like really, really snowy, and I want to thank Trustees D'Souza and Rosenfeld for attending that, and thanks to the citizens who spent their time. And I think there was also a charitable event in a local charity that had a fundraising event during this last period as well that was really well attended in Boulder. So,
Thanks. Trustee D'Souza?
I attended another DRCOG meeting, and one of the things that's going on right now is this year the NARC meeting, or the National Association of Regional Councils. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I guess it's better than the nerd one for the Rocky Flats, but it's going to be in Denver this year, and DRCOGs is very excited about it, be hosting it, and they are asking for municipalities. I don't know if they've already contacted staff or not to put in, if there's any way the town could afford to put in any bit of money to help towards hosting that event. They're asking all the members, communities, to put in just a little bit, whatever they can, to help out with that. And one of the things that we discussed was the federal safety lieu will be expiring, and so DRCOG approved a motion. This was at the meeting before, but I didn't have my notes. That basically promotes the change in the process of how we get federal funding, and it's going to take, so like things like restructuring the gas tax, providing new funding for multimodal transportation, and the big thing is the consolidation of about 110 current federal programs into 10 more broad programs, and this was something that was recommended also by the Blue Ribbon Panel, so that was one of the things. The one thing that was a little, so DRCOG with the recovery fund set up the zero tolerance program so that projects that delayed their start, there was basically a zero tolerance for them. Well, now they've modified it to some tolerance. So there's now some tolerance.
Almost zero.
Yeah, not quite zero, but some tolerance. That's
or darn close.
Yeah, they're tough, but not that tough. And then the one thing was that CDOT had asked to be able to move leftover funds from one pre-approved project that had extra funds to another pre-approved project. When they asked us that, if we had gone back and rewritten how they had asked it, it would have delayed certain projects and things like that. And so we did go ahead and go through with that. As far as what that means for Superior, I think, unfortunately, that it means that if there is extra money that could have been put towards US 36, that would be probably put towards I-25. It's kind of, it wasn't stated, but that might be a likely outcome. So it was a little bit frustrating with that, and especially at the late hour that they came to us with that. So that was all from DRCOG.
Thanks. Trustee Squimats?
I'm really sorry, I forgot about a CML. You reminded me of a CML meeting as well. And I think the good news out of the Colorado Municipal League Executive Committee meeting is that on the scorecard, I think pretty much everything that the town wanted opposed was failing, and everything that the town wanted supported was passing. And I think the only outstanding one had to do with the collective bargaining, which was sort of limping along. Is there another one as well?
Urban renewal.
Yeah, urban renewals.
All right, the TIF thing.
It's still
Still out there and alive. But I think
With
they're
Yes.
You think?
It's gotten through the House. It's now coming before the Senate.
Okay. They didn't sound that optimistic about it, because I thought that they were planning on doing a lot of calls to some of the lead people and arguing. But anyway.
I was at CML today, and they're not optimistic.
Oh, not good. Okay. All right. And somebody else will mention the chamber thing, right? The Louisville thing, the meeting.
I haven't, but I was going to.
Okay. And then the last thing, just as a little side, I wanted to mention that the next sort of coffee buzz, I think, is going to be Wednesday this time, May 13th. So if people want to meet with me or other trustees that might want to come, that will be in the evening, a Wednesday evening instead. And I'm going to do a guided walk on the single tree path with a chance also to ask questions and comment on town events on the 9th before Superior Day starts.
Great. Thank you to Trustee Squimats for doing those outreaches. I think they're always very helpful. Thank you, Trustee D'Souza, for continuing to go to DRCOG. There's been a few meetings about US 36. There's not really anything different about the environmental impact statement. There probably will be a request from various municipalities to see whether or not there's interest in supporting the 0.4% increase in sales tax to help promote the Fast Tracks program. And we haven't had consensus on the corridor, and I think that's going to be discussed further. I think how we left it, or how I left it, how I asked Jay to leave it with them was that when RTD decides whether or not they're going to come forward, then we can have a discussion about whether or not to support that. But I think we can probably wait to see if that's actually going to happen. We had a nice meeting with our colleagues over at Louisville at their library that now Superior residents can go to. I think it was very productive. We talked about a variety of different issues. One has to do with the library. I think it's would be important, and Trustee Skumatz and I talked about this earlier, to make sure that our residents continue to understand that there will be a vote upon this in 2010, if I remember the date correctly. So we probably need to have just a continuous sort of little blurb in there that this is what's going on. Not trying to campaign one way or the other, but just so that they're aware of this. We did talk about the interchange at US 36 in McCaslin, and so I had conversations, at least electronic conversations, with various board members, and I think that I had interest from Trustee D'Souza and Trustee Cirelli to be part of the interchange committee, and I thought maybe Trustee Rosenfeld, if he's still interested, could be a potential alternate to that. And we also will have a representation on the Louisville Library Board, and I was going to recommend Trustee Skumatz to be part of that, with Trustee Williams to be an alternate to that. So hopefully that's happy with everybody. I did talk to Mayor Sisk over there, and they seem to be fine with having an alternate in these positions. Part of urban drainage and flood control, there will have been mailings, I think, already sent out to property owners that are in the Coal Creek floodplain. I think that we have a few in town. I think they're a small number, but we should be, I don't know if we have the addresses. We probably do, but we need to make sure that people understand that they're in the floodplain. Let's see, and then I had a question, and I don't have my look ahead in front of me, but home rule, I think that are we having a conversation about that?
We were scheduled to have that, I want to say, in late January, and as we lost it because of some other pressing matters, we need to reschedule it. You'll recall that one of our guest speakers was going to be Mr. Mamet from the CML, and candidly, we probably won't get Sam to be able to attend a meeting while the legislature is still in session. So we definitely plan on doing it. It is on our list. There are a couple of other issues that we had on our schedule that have gotten pushed back, including 2 more tonight, that we will be scheduling at the first opportunity.
Okay, first opportunity sounds good. You know, obviously I'm a supporter of home rule, but one way or the other, we need to have the reintroduction, re-education about it,
board,
and
yep.
see whether or not the board's interested in that. So.
Don't we have to do that every 2 years with new board members coming on?
Yes, right. It will be the next election. Who knows? The recent storms reminded me of the need to have an emergency vehicle access out of original town. I know that this is on staff's agenda, so we don't control all the properties in the area, but I feel confident that we will continue to move forward either with an alternate bridge crossing or some other access out to McCaslin in case the 2nd Street Bridge went out. Doesn't seem likely that that will occur, but will be an important item. And then I had 2 other sort of maybe off-the-wall issues, but I had Trustee Gregoris mention some interest in obtaining property between Sagamore and the storage facility. I don't think we need any staff direction about that, but I'm sort of interested about that concept as well. And I think it would be good, depending on what happens with the Remington project, if and when that comes forward, to be able to extend the sewer as much as possible out to the Kuffner subdivision. I've been thinking about the history associated with that, and Phyllis perhaps has more information about that, but the whole timing of the community development block grant program, then who got what taps, seems in my mind somewhat problematic. So I'm not saying that we must do that, but I have some interest in it. So if and when that comes forward, I have some I have some curiosity about that. So I know that this is going to cause some consternation among various different people, but I just want to let people know kind of where my, when I'm up late at night thinking about things, that's sort of the things that I think about. So who knows if Remington is actually going to come forward or not, but if they do, then see if there's opportunities, sort of what's in my mind. So that's all I had. Mr. Randall.
There were 2 items that were on your workshop session tonight that we didn't get to. The first and foremost was the suggestion of going to an electronically distributed newsletter. We will reschedule that probably at the next meeting for discussion. We're really looking forward to board feedback on the concept. So we'll make that presentation probably in 2 weeks. Won't take a long period of time, but we will revisit that one. But again, very excited about it. It seems to be the responsible way to go. It's green, it's cost-effective, and we think it'll improve the end product. The second one, much lower priority, was naming the newsletter. We'll reschedule both of those. Some items from the digests. We'd shared information with the board as a result of all the questions that came up 2 weeks ago about the planting of annuals and perennials, and I hope you found that information to be useful. We did follow up and had lengthy discussions with Boulder County Parks and Open Space regarding the possibility of using the barn on the Verhey property for some sort of a more commercial use. I won't say that the door is totally closed, but there are a number of obstacles, both in terms of county funding and our own zoning ordinance, which would necessitate either a modification to the zoning ordinance or modification of the underlying zoning for that particular property. We did receive a report and shared it with the board last week regarding our 2009 water supply, and despite the relatively low precipitation levels that we had earlier the year and the below average snowfalls that were in the mountains, we've made up for a lot of it. But the report is very good. Water supply looks to be in excess of 100%, 102 to 105% for the year, so we don't expect to have any problems in 2009. We also give an update.
Can I interrupt you just about the water supply?
Mm-hmm.
So there was a thought that we'd be able to lease water again this year. When will we know of that opportunity?
We generally know by late May, and Mr. Zylis has always been our conduit for interested agricultural interests that have had an interest in buying some of our surplus shares.
So we'll hear more from him. I think that that's a great program, and I love to be able to lease water to agricultural.
4 to 6 weeks, I would expect we'd have a position, and knowing whether we have interested parties that are interested in buying surplus water shares.
Great.
Resolute Investment, the update regarding the Horizon commercial property, which sits between Tyler and Flatirons Mall. We have received their application to rezone that property, both their 11.5 acres, 12 acres, and our approximately 1 acre parcel. That was part of their presentation to you many weeks ago, changing the zoning from CAC, or Community Access Commercial, to Regional Access Commercial. The most significant element of that is it does allow more land uses and more dense, particularly higher land uses. And you saw, as an example, plans for, I believe, 3-story office buildings, but a multi-story hotel on that site. And again, that could not be built, a multi-story hotel could not be built on the site with its current zoning. It would be allowable under the RAC. That application will be heard by the Planning Commission in May. I don't know if it's the first or the second meeting in May, before it'll be coming back to the board in either late May or early June. And then the last item, we've already dealt with the issue of the library representative. We did share with you the information about the proposal that the town has made to the owners of the Superior Marketplace and the owner of the bonds is financing the debt in an effort to refinance the second tier of debt that exists over there. We did the first tier of debt on our own in late 2007. We've been waiting for the entree, and we've made a proposal in order to try to take advantage of the current interest rate environments. And the last item that I had, though it was not in your weekly digest, it was my oversight, I intended it to be, we had some discussions, I believe it was in mid or late January with ProStack regarding the installation of new amenities at Williams Field. First and foremost was a scoreboard. The second one in a later year, was bleachers. And the board's guidance seemed to be, yes, we're interested, we're willing to consider, but we're looking for third-party funding, the users, the primary users, to pay for the installation of those amenities. Wanted to make sure that we're, one, on the same page, and two, that you're still comfortable with the concept and recognizing that if there's going to be a corporate sponsorship, there's probably going to be some signage on it. And we just wanted to make sure that if they're out trying to raise money and going to corporate representatives within the community or within the region, they need to know that whoever ponies up, ponies, Mustangs, no pun intended, whoever might pony up for to make those investments would have the ability to receive some recognition for it. So we don't have a specific proposal in terms of the amount and all of the rest. It would have to be within our sign ordinance. It would have to be within the appropriate, reasonable parameters for visibility, but just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware. Fundraising campaigns are underway to raise the money privately, but if and when we do see a definitive proposal, it will probably have some commercial aspect to it, some signage.
You put the signs on the outfield fence, hit sign, windsuit, that kind of thing.
Trustee Skumas.
And perhaps I missed the meeting where that was discussed. I don't remember bleachers being discussed. I don't remember a scoreboard, and I thought that facility was done. So I thought we had a project, and that project was done. But perhaps I'm wrong. Do other board members? Okay, I must have missed the meeting.
I think so for clarification, I think there was starting out with one set of bleachers on the east side, and then talking about adding another set maybe down the road. That was
and actually the motivation or the priority seems to be the scoreboard. That seems to be what they're going for first in terms of fundraising. But if there's the presumption that we're done and never again, but not town money and privately raised on our property to the benefit of all the prospective users.
I mean, I know there were some concerns about how much light was already going to bleed over into the houses across the creek, whatever you want to call it. And scoreboards can be pretty bright. I don't know. So all that, you mentioned stuff about visibility and all that. I'd want to be cautious.
Understood.
So hold off on the Jumbotron.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Is it?
So, I mean, I think I speak for the board that, we don't want to overly commercialize town properties, although I think that many of us have seen in other, even over in Louisville or other locations, that they have sponsorships and scoreboards on them. So I think that can be tastefully done so long as they're done right. So, the town board isn't signing off on anything right now.
Absolutely not. I just didn't want there to be surprises that, oh my God, but we didn't realize that there might be a Coca-Cola or whatever it might be.
Let's see, I have one other thing from your weekly digest. E470 said there was an interesting analysis or something to that wonderfully detailed analysis, I believe was the terminology here. I assume that's wonderfully detailed and didn't support the E470 highway, or it did support? I wasn't sure where you're going with that.
It did not support. It was authored by or commissioned by the City of Golden. It takes multiple exception for the assumptions, both the economic assumptions, traffic projections, and just riddles the initial environmental, it's not an environmental impact statement, I believe it was the environmental analysis that was done by the City and County of Broomfield, City of Arvada, and Jefferson County, which painted a very rosy scenario for the prospect of E470 being a very successful investment.
Can I ask?
And if you're interested in seeing it, it's very lengthy, but I found it to be very valuable and wanted you to be aware of its existence. And if you're interested in seeing it, I'd be glad to make copies and distribute it to everybody.
Dana, I thought that at least at the Dr. Cog level, this issue had kind of passed us by already. But
No, it hasn't passed by. There's a lot of people that are interested in the completion of it in a regional outlook, that this would complete that missing link. So it's still.
No, what I meant was the environmental study that they did for whatever. It's not an environmental impact statement, but Dr. Cog accepted the study that was done.
Oh, right. They accepted into the current plan that it doesn't have to go through the revisions that the new ones are going to have to go through. Yeah, that they did accept already, but not, the rest of it's still up
And I believe Dr. Cog also removed any public funding, any public by CDOT state funding to finance either studies or construction.
But I would be interested in covering that. Or if nothing else, at least a less detailed synopsis of it. There's one available.
Okay.
And then one other question for you, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I got a letter from Brownstein, Hyatt, Farber, and Schreck from about level 3, and I guess that we have some trails over on some property there. I don't know if this is the time to talk about it or where we're
No
at.
problem. We've already responded to it. Our presumption is they think they own everything up to the pools and the houses, and they don't. We're quite confident that the encroachments that they talked about, both trails, signage, and a picnic table, all sit on town-owned, publicly owned property, not on theirs. We've asked them if they're interested in presenting a survey or having a survey done, if we might be misunderstanding where those property lines are in that very expansive open space property. All of the installations that we're talking about, signage and a picnic table, were done when that was still owned by Superior Metropolitan District Number 3. Town has not installed anything. There are some trails that exist on their property, no doubt about it. They're pedestrian trails. There's not anything improved. We've not condoned it. We've not done it, but I'm not doubting that probably some people walk through it.
I thought those were coyote trails or something like that.
So we've responded.
I've not sent a written response yet. I've been playing voicemail tag with Carolyn White about the issue, and basically, I don't know that she was aware that the sign and picnic table have been there for at least 6 or 7 years, from what we can tell.
Okay.
So I'm not quite sure she got all the facts before the letter was written.
Before the letter was written. Okay. So I will say that is being completed at the staff
Yes.
level. Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Randall?
No.
Ms. Carberry?
Real quick, I'm not sure if you heard, but in March, the Colorado Supreme Court issued a very interesting decision about Tabor, basically eviscerated Tabor, which is, depending on which side you're on, good news or bad, but really relaxes the Tabor, some of the Tabor requirements. Now, what the state has done immediately is, I'm sure you've heard, they're going to remove the sales tax exemption for cigarettes and for vending machines. That's before them right now. That will automatically come down to you. You adopt all the sales tax exemptions that the state does, and when the state gets rid of them, you get rid of them too. I'm still concerned that that's a Tabor issue, but under this case, it probably isn't. The case basically did away with a lot of Tabor, and the way we were interpreting Tabor for many, many years has changed. So we can be a little less conservative, I think, on our Tabor interpretation. But what that means to you financially, we'll see if the bills pass, but they're likely to pass is what CML, I was at a luncheon today at CML specifically on this issue, and CML said the exemptions on, removing the exemptions on cigarettes and vending machines is likely to pass. Now, in the town of Superior, I'm not sure if that's not probably a big money item, but for the state it's huge, so we'll automatically get that extra revenue, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if we have one in town. I don't think
Cigarettes probably.
cigarettes, yeah, not from a vending machine. Okay. Thank you. Phyllis, anything from you?
Just a reminder, the next meeting, not the next meeting, I'm sorry, the second meeting in May is on Tuesday, the 26th, because Monday is Memorial Day, so just check your calendars and make sure you're on Tuesday.
And can you send out one of your wonderful emails just to make sure that there's a quorum here? Trustee Gomez.
I'm really sorry, I have one small announcement. Okay. And in association with the original and then rescheduled Arbor Day, there had been a kickoff of providing free compost to citizens. And that was set up to be available to citizens, not landscaping companies, but citizens, at the Yard Waste drop-off site, which is on Honey Creek Road. Thank you. And my question to town staff is, we delivered a big chunk of it. It was meant to sort of last now and then also be sort of available through or Superior Days and so on. How's it going? Is there still a lot left?
People were picking it up yesterday and Saturday in my neighborhood. I know that.
Good.
I was by their sats yesterday,
Yeah.
and there was like still a pile there, but I could
So we
see
might
it
need
going.
another delivery. I might have to go look. Okay.
Yeah, you should look Wednesday.
Okay.
We'll find out how
But
the
Saturday and Sunday, most of the day except lunch hours, and then Wednesday evenings,
from 4 to 7 on Wednesday.
4 to 7.
Great.
Time to get your beds ready. Yeah,
That's right. All right. With that, let's move to item number 8, which is a public hearing for consideration of extending the grace period to file a final development plan for the Superior Park Professional Center. With that, I'll open up public hearing. And Phyllis, you have proof of publication?
Yes, I do.
All right, thanks, Mr. Randall.
Superior Park Professional Center, as a reminder, is what we often refer to as Ridge 2, but it was an approved office development, 2 buildings, total of 54,000 square feet, 2 stories in height, on 5.9 acres adjacent, sitting between the town's water treatment plant on the west side of McCaslin and the Ridge residential subdivision. This was approved in early 2007. The existing approval, the original approval, expired after 18 months. The applicant was under the impression that the original approval was good for 36 months. It's only good for 18 months. So the application before you is an extension, and we're recommending that, one, we approve the extension, and we would recommend that we approve it for an additional 18 months beginning now, in order to allow the credit markets, the investment environment. The alternative would be to say, no, start from scratch. And we've done this many a time. Most recently was probably Calmonte. There may have been some other instances where we've approved the time period, time frame for a preliminary development plan, zone district plan. This is not uncommon with some of those instances. So we'd recommend your favorable consideration.
Okay. Is there anybody here representing the applicant? And if so, if you have anything you'd like to add at the mic, stating your name and business address regarding this issue, that would be great. We're pretty casual here.
Yeah, that's what I assumed you were. Well, I really don't have anything else to add, although we were under the impression that we had a longer period of time. We're still very committed to bringing quality health care to this side of the highway, and we want to make it something that everyone could be proud of. But the economic market has definitely kiboshed the first few things that we had. There's other things going on. It's just going to take more time. And everyone was under the consideration or the thought that we had a much longer period of time. We're rather astounded to find that we didn't. So I really have nothing else other than we still plan on bringing care to this side of the highway.
And we got your name and business address?
Dan Helberg.
Business address or address, whatever you'd
1120
like to
Alpine
use.
in Boulder. That's where I practice now.
Okay. Thanks. Questions?
Yeah, I do have a
Trustee
question.
Sorelli?
My recollection, and this is maybe incorrect, but maybe it's confused with another property, but didn't we give you an extension once before for
No.
a different stage of this property?
I don't believe you have.
Okay. I recollect another extension up on properties on the ridge, I thought, around the time when we were doing or maybe the issue was different. When we did the revision to the comprehensive plan or something like that, and then property was not zoned or left off the map or something.
Yeah, that's, you're correct. When the original PD plan development for the Ridge also encompassed the Ridge 2 property. But that portion of Ridge 2 never came forward after the completion of the original Ridge property PD. So it reverted back to, well, the comprehensive plan had it as, I forget what the comprehensive plan had it as, but a lesser zoning than what the PD was, or designation, I should say, not
Yeah.
zoning. But, so, yeah, it was originally part of the Ridge Townhome plan development, but it expired because it had been so many years since that plan development.
I guess that's
took
all,
place.
neither here nor there. Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions from the board? So I guess I have to ask, is it likely that in 18 months that we'll see something, or is this all for naught? Okay. I guess that's the answer that I was thinking I would get. Other questions from the board? It's a public hearing. If there's any public comment.
Just wanted to confirm.
Trustee
So
Gomez.
the development is consistent with the comp plan for that site?
I think so.
Thanks.
Okay. Seeing none. close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Trustee Skumatz?
I move to adopt a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving an extension to the grace period to submit the final development plan for the Superior Park Professional Center Development. Resolution, did I read this?
You can just R-dash.
30.
R-30.
Okay. Motion by Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee Sorelli. Further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. Item number 9, adoption of a resolution approving a contract with Lafarge West, Inc. for a street overlay project. Mr. Randall.
Very briefly, and we were very pleased, as you see from the bid tab, both our success in generating a lot of vendor interest. We had 7 vendors that submitted bids on the proposal for our street resurfacing program for 2009. We were equally or more so excited at the prices that we received. And before you tonight, you'll remember when we discussed this, first of all, this is the first phase of the rejuvenation of existing pavement in our 20-year street management plan. Zones 8 and Zone 9, which are virtually all of the streets north and east of Rock Creek Parkway and north of Colton, are included within Zones 8 and 9. Can't give you the exact linear feet. We are recommending that 2 things. 1, a contract, and 2, that we go with option B. You looked at the alternatives, including the mill in place, which hot asphalt in place using recycled asphalt, which is option A, has a much higher price tag than option B, which is the traditional. You scarify or mill or remove approximately 2 inches of existing asphalt and replace it with 2 inches of fresh asphalt, providing a new pavement surface. So we're recommending option B because of the price differential, and we're recommending that the contract be awarded to Lafarge West of Denver at a total cost of $570,060.70. For comparative purposes, the budget includes $2.9 million, and the particular estimate before we went out for bid on this for this method of construction was $1.6 million, and we're coming in at under $600,000. So we're very, very pleased, very excited. We've got some follow-up items, and be glad to answer any questions that you might have. But we're taking advantage. We hit the market at the right time. We took advantage of the lowest prices that were available in asphalt and tar-based, oil-based paving materials. And you see how that market has changed just since the month of February based on the unit prices that were being received by the City of Denver. So, again, we're very, very excited about this and would strongly recommend your favorable consideration.
Questions from the board? Trustee Skumatz.
I guess as part of that, I'm really pleased that this is a positive dollar amount and all that sort of thing. The part that I have an issue with is what we might do. The implication that we might then take those savings and apply it to the next road piece. And to me, that doesn't seem, that's not something that to me is the natural next thing. I think we really need to look, we've got budget issues, and I'd like to see us figure out what the next most important thing for us to be doing is, and those savings don't necessarily, to me, carry over to only road things. So that's I guess, the biggest issue I have with this. I'm glad that we're saving money, but I want to figure out what we use the savings for. To me, it doesn't necessarily roll over.
There's nothing in tonight's report or recommendation that talks about all of that.
Hands up.
But we wanted to explain for 2 reasons. One, the prospect of being able to get this kind of pricing in the future. I'll agree. There's a bit of a roll of the dice. Come up with a different phrase there. And 2, the benefit that we have with the recently approved professional services agreement that says, regardless of the size of our capital improvement program this year, we have a fixed soft cost associated with engineering, design, construction, supervision, and the like. So recognizing that environment, great vendor prices, no cost on the third-party design, plan inspection, construction supervision, we think the market is ripe to get a head start on the 13-year plan, which our budgeting has already told us we can maintain through years 6 or 7. So that was part of why we're priming the pump here and saying it wouldn't be a bad thing to do. You haven't had any of the prices. We haven't had any discussions with the vendor about the ability to extend the scheduling. It is our desire to get all of this work done during the summer months, so there's no impact on pedestrian during the school year, that kind of stuff. But that would be a part of a subsequent recommendation that might come forward. I appreciate
And
it.
I don't think we should discuss it with only 4 board members here, but I did want to raise the issue that I don't consider it a given in something.
Never is.
So I have to ask, since I was excited about the hot-in-place asphalt.
As we all were. It had a lower estimate, and it used less virgin asphalt.
Yeah.
Right. So I'd just be curious if the contractor would just let us know what they're going to do with the, what was the verb used? Scarified?
Scarify or mill.
Great.
Okay.
The scraped. And I believe Mr. Hawkes might have an answer for
Oh,
that.
okay.
There's several terms for it: millings, rotomillings. It's all recycled asphalt. The majority of this is reused as road base. A lot of it does go right back into asphalt. Depending on the spec that's used, new asphalt that's laid down allows for a certain percentage of recycled asphalt, or even requires it. So it's not. This is not a material that is ever going to go into a landfill. It has too much value as a construction material. So it's just not going to be used necessarily on our roads. It will be hauled back to a plant, reused for something else.
Okay. Great. I think that was all the questions I had. Okay. Any other questions from the board? Anything else you wanted to add?
Obviously, even with the $2.9 million budget, we have other projects that are included within our plan for the year. The quickest one that comes to mind is the sidewalk at Town 9, which was included within that allowance. There's some other things. So we're not done. I don't want you to take the difference between 2.9 and 600 and say, oh, that's our savings for the year. There goes our budget woes are fixed. But there are some other things in there. We'll be bringing those projects forward to you as they're prepared. But this was the biggest element, and we are incredibly excited by the prices that we received.
Okay. Thanks.
And we'll have further discussion of the Town 9 sidewalk, since I understand that's got some comment. Or does that come?
A contract will ultimately have to come through. The cost estimates of those, depending on the material, whether it was an asphalt or a concrete, will need board approval.
There you go.
Okay.
We'll all go out there and stop it down.
All right. Well, if there's no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
There we go. I'd like to move to approve a contract for the 2009 street overlay program with Lafarge West Incorporated of Denver, Colorado, in the amount of $570,060.70. Resolution number R-31.
Motion by Trustee Skumatz. Is there a second? Trustee Sorelli, for the discussion regarding this issue. Phyllis?
D'Souza?
Yes.
Buckle?
Yes.
Schumer?
Congratulations, yes.
Sorelli?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That motion carries. Trustee Skumatz, I see a pen.
I have, because I thought you might be thinking about adjourning.
I am. It's
just a time.
It's on my thing, but I also have another issue.
Oh,
So,
okay.
anything else to come before the board?
Yeah.
Trustee Skumatz.
I have a, so, I wonder if we could, maybe we already have a policy, or maybe we don't, but when it comes to the comments part of the agenda, the public comment on consent agenda, I think, is it comment, is it answers, is it comment and answers in some cases and not others, and how do we make it so that it's something, as positive as possible, but also not be, up against the wall if we haven't had a chance to, we need time to research some of these answers. What's the best, maybe there's a best way, or maybe we already have a policy that's really clear and well-known, but I'm not sure. So I'm not saying we have to answer it now, but I'd love to know if there's a way these things are handled that we can do. I think actually some towns, and I'm not recommending this, believe me, I'm not recommending this, I'm just saying, I think some towns require sort of a person to sign up to, and then they're sort of in order, and their issue is on there or whatever. And again, I like free-flowing information, but I also don't like being sort of the negative vibes that can sometimes happen if they don't have to.
So, various municipalities do this different ways. Louisville, I know, has a sign-up card that you have to have the card in. I think many municipalities strictly enforce whatever their time limit is, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, or whatever. It's never been the policy of the town, either under when I've been the mayor or previous mayors, that we try to be able to answer questions whenever possible. The school board, I believe, has and maybe it's the county as well, has a public comment and response or something like that, where that's all part of that timeline, and they have very strict, 7:20 comes and we're done with that. So I guess I'd leave it like it is right now as much as possible, just so long as residents understand that we don't always have, despite comments to the contrary, we don't always have the answers at our fingertips here, and sometimes it requires research. So I guess I'd leave it like it is right now, and I think it's generally worked pretty well. I think so, unless the board feels otherwise.
Just thought it was worth restating.
No, I think it's an excellent question. So I had one, and perhaps I'm hammering myself over the head with my own gavel right now, but we'll have to have a public process to talk, and I should have brought this up other part of the meeting, but about the school site. I know that where it's right now, Richmond owns it, they pay the property tax, we could leave it like that in perpetuity. I'm sort of thinking it's probably going to be like that until 2014 at least. And so, this is many years into the future, but we probably should have a public process to decide, are we just going to leave it like it is? Are we going to have community gardens there? Are we going to build some houses there? And look at this, in a year or two. So, once again, this is not at the top of the agenda here, but I think Parks, Recreation, Open Space, Trails Advisory Committee should weigh in on this. It hasn't been at least the top of the open space purchases, as far as I'm aware, and it hasn't been on the top of the list to build a park over there, but sometime in the future we'll need to, the town, maybe nobody sitting here will be here at that time, but the town will need to come up with an idea of where to proceed with that property, since I think eventually that will transfer from Richmond to the town, and once again the school's not going to ever use it. So just a thought for people to think about.
I think it's a good idea. And can I do a follow-up on that?
Trustee D'Souza.
I was just wondering if our town attorney had had a chance to look over the agreements at all. I'd asked last time so that we knew exactly what we could or could not do once the agreements ended.
No, I have not. But I
Okay.
would get you a report. I think it's probably easy if I do a quick report on that, and then I'll get that to you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks. Anything else to come before the board? Seeing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.